Hello, this is Matt Davignon, and I'm going to do a quick little review of the DJ Tech iScratch101. This review is for the focus of using this CD turntable for music improvisation and music production. Most of the reviews that I find online are reviewing CD turntables for the use of mixing tracks of house music together and not really doing a lot of modification of the sounds or anything like that. So this is how good this is as a performance instrument. So real quick, it's not going to be real quick, but okay, so once you got a CD in here, you hit play. And by the way, I'm using my own CD just because I don't want to worry about takedown notices on YouTube for using somebody else's track. But it's not the best source material for this sort of thing, and I apologize. Anyway, once you've got a CD in here, your track selection is this knob here, which is a little unusual, but you get used to it pretty quick. You can also search in tracks by holding down the search button. The search isn't really that good for performative music because it takes a second to engage, and it also changes speed as you're doing it. So it's possible to learn how to use this, but it feels like there's going to be a learning curve. Also, you can search by hitting this switch and using the jog wheel. But this is that one feels even more removed. You know, it doesn't seem to skip around very well. It seems to do it by about 3 or 4 seconds at a time. And it just doesn't feel very useful. Okay, so when you're playing a track, you can set a cue, or you can hit the cue button to pause it and bring it back to the very beginning of the track. Once it's here, you can hold down the cue button to kind of give it like a stutter start, or you can hit play to begin from your cue point. Once something is playing, you can use this to set a new cue point. So in sets a new cue point. Also in the seamless loop functionality, you can use the out. So I'm going to set an in and an out. In, out. And then hitting out again lets it exit out of that loop. Let me see if I can get a nicer one. Okay, there's a better one. So once you get out of that loop, you can also hit this reloop button to bring it back into the loop. And you can almost use that as a sample button. There's a scratch functionality in here, and before I get too far into it, I should talk about this jog wheel. While the music's playing, the jog wheel is mostly meant for letting you cue multiple tracks up, so it's just kind of a gentle nudge. And I like that. It's nice and subtle. And you can learn how to do it nice and subtle. When you turn on the scratch, you still have that subtlety if you touch it by the outside of the wheel. In order to do the actual scratching, you actually put your finger on the metal, and that signifies you actually stopping the record. And then it works pretty much like a regular turntable. And again, touching the metal portion of the wheel is a lot different than touching just the outer portion of the wheel. It took me about an hour to figure that one out. Also, when you're scratching, you can right now the traditional scratch is like a record scratch. So when you let go, it continues where it left off. You can also do something called a hold to scratch cue, or I'm sorry, a cue scratch. So now in this mode, when I scratch and I let go, it's more like a hip-hop record scratching sample where no matter where I'm scratching, whenever I let go, it's gonna start from my cue point. So anytime I take my finger off this, it's gonna go back to the cue point. Where in the original one, now, doesn't sound like it's doing that, but it actually starts off from where I left off. When you're doing a scratch, the visualization doesn't work from this portion right here. Because this does not spin as the music plays, this is going to get out of sync. So instead what they do, and it's going to be hard for you to see it on the camera, is they give you a visualization, which is this wheel right here. This, maybe if I turn out the light you'll be able to see it. Right there. So you'll see a little colored notch going around, representing where in the track I am. And if I let go of that, if I let go of the thing there, that's what you watch while you're scratching, as opposed to watching the label of the record like you would do in a traditional turntable. Let me get the light back on. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about pitch, and let me just make sure we're showing the whole thing again. Okay, so once you're in here, I already mentioned that this thing's kind of like a little pitch nudge. In addition to that, we've got this nice pitch slider on the side, and it's got 4 ranges. It can do 6%, 12%, 25%, and 100%. Here's 25, and here's 100. At 100%, all the way up is stopped, and all the way down is double speed. In addition, there's a third type of pitch control, which is this nice little button called pitch bend. And what pitch bend does is when I hold down the button, it does a nice little portamento up, and then when I let go, it snaps back to its original position. And the range of that portamento is based on whether what I have set for this pitch range, which I toggle by hitting this button here. I like that. I like having 3 different ways of controlling it. Alright, now we're going to talk about memory. So we already determined that we can set one cue point by hitting in. But in addition, these 4 buttons down here can also be their own cue points. And that kind of lets you use it a little bit more like a sampler. So I'm just going to let it play and cue up some points real quick. So I toggle between the memory button and then each sample button. Okay, so now I got 4. And then, unlike a sampler, these actually play the music continuously, so they're not going to stop. I just hit that, it's going to keep playing the music to the end of the CD. And strangely, I'm still trying to get used to this little feature, but you can switch this over to sample mode, and when you hit this, it's just going to keep playing the CD. Let me just move this to a different track just so you can see the difference. So that's the new track, and if I hit these buttons, actually, did that wrong. Okay, so here's the new track. I hit this in sample mode, and I can play my samples on top of the CD that's playing. The scratcher scratches the CD itself, unless I hold down the scratch button. In that case, it's supposed to scratch the samples, but I'm not sure why that's not working now. We also got some FX in here. Let me just bring this back to this track. Okay, so the effects we have: scratch, filter, echo, trans, skid, phase, flanger, and pan. Most of these are on an automatic LFO, so if I hit filter, it's going to go based on what it thinks the BPM is. And I can tap a new BPM in the lower corner down here. And I can also say whether it wants to apply the effects on quarter notes, half notes, whole notes, third notes, 2 whole notes, 4 whole notes. And I think this hold button. I'm not sure what the hold button does just yet, but then you can also do echo. So there's our echo. It's got about 7 repeats. Trans is kind of like a, sounds like a tremolo based on a square wave. With any of these effects, this pitch wheel is still gonna, it's either gonna be on your scratch mode, and the outside's gonna be the nudge. So this does not affect the effects. They're just kind of locked into whatever they are. Phaser, flanger, pan, you know what those do. Or if you don't, then look them up. Okay, it's also got a time stretch feature, which is based on this slider. So I can turn off, by hitting tempo lock up here, I can turn off the pitch bend ability for anything. So now, when I'm playing, anything that I do that would affect pitch bend doesn't bend the pitch, but instead does a time stretch, including this. And let me get this up to track 4 so you can appreciate the at 100% and stopped, a pitch bend will lock in place. Alright, so that's the basic features that I figured out how to work with. Now we're going to talk a little bit about actually playing this thing. Ergonomics are a little awkward. I'm a right-handed person. Oh, one thing I didn't cover yet. Okay, so sorry about this. There's a nice reverse button down here. And what the reverse button lets you do is toggles between reverse and forward. And it's nice because you could just jam on this thing and let it stay in the same note. And do some lovely stuff with that, especially when you're doing these nice little. I like that a lot. Okay, so now on to the ergonomics. It's a little awkward hitting these pitch controls while you're controlling these samples, unless maybe you're left-handed, then it would be perfect. This is not really built to be a performance turntable. It just kind of is dumb luck that most of the stuff is in a place where it's convenient to use. But the pitch is out there, except for the wheel is in a nice place for you to do the nudge. On the back here, lastly on the ergonomics, this is it's kind of easy for this to get out of control. You're probably going to want to attach this to a volume pedal or something. There's no volume control on the box whatsoever, so you'll probably want to have some sort of external slider or volume control, something like that. I'm probably going to hook this up to a volume pedal, and it's also made to continuously play tracks, so it takes a little bit of effort to remind yourself to stop. And even though it has that ability to do stops, it's very tempting to let it keep going, which could just wind up in never shutting up. On the back here, there is no 1/4-inch output. So if you want to run this through effects or anything, the only output is an RCA. It's got another thing called digital out, which is also in an RCA shape. It's got a USB slave, which I believe, I haven't read up on this too much, but I believe it lets you use this as a controller for manipulating samples off your computer if you have the correct software. Anyway, if you're going to run this through effects, you're going to have to adapt RCA to 1/4-inch, which I think is kind of lame. I kind of expected these would have a headphone out, but they do not. Anyway, that's about it. The quick thing is I got this for about $300 off of Amazon, and everything I've showed you here I figured out in about 2 hours. You probably are going to want to read the book when you get it, but the book is about a 5-minute read. And, it's fairly easy to pick stuff up. So I'm going to, we are currently at 14 minutes. I'm just going to monkey around with it for a little bit and just, just have some fun with it. So let's do that.